Hey, welcome back to another episode of Steve's Auto Care, and today we are working on my personal truck. You know what they say about mechanics. Mechanics vehicles are always the last ones to get worked on, and yeah, I pretty much wait until my truck is, the last. So anyway, today my truck has a pretty bad oil leak that I'm going to try to fix today. We're going to go through and show the shots of what it's going to take to do it. But before we start, I want to talk about the elephant that's in the room that you don't really see right at the moment, but you will as the camera goes around. I have Christmas lights all over my truck. This is something that I do for Christmas. I've been doing it for the last 14 years. And yes, it looks terrible during the day because you see each blots of tape. And why do I tape it? I tape it because of two reasons. When you're driving down the road without taping the individual bulbs, they will vibrate, and that vibration of the bulb in the socket will actually scratch your paint. So if you can keep the bulb from moving, there's no scratches. The other thing is I set this up to where it outlines my truck. Most people that I see, when they put Christmas lights on the vehicle, they just drape it all over, tape the cords down, and be done with it. I'm a little more thorough on that, and you can see that if you go to the Big Blue Christmas Truck, Big Blue The Christmas Truck Facebook page, you'll see my posts, and you'll see my truck has its own Facebook page. So that's why there's Christmas lights all over my truck. Gotta have some fun every once in a while, right? All right, so what are we doing today? We're trying to fix an oil leak that has developed over the last 6 months or so. And I'm pretty sure it's coming from the variable valve timing solenoids, which stick up through the valve covers. So there's a seal that seals that up on the valve cover, and it's failed. Why did it fail? I think there's two reasons. One, when I did the timing chains on this, I upgraded the oil pump to a high pressure, high volume oil pump. It's putting out somewhere like 75 to 80 psi of pressure, and I don't know how much volume it is, but it's supposed to be a lot more. It's the same oil pump that they put on the Ford GT when that car had the 5.4 liter. So it's the Ford GT oil pump on my engine. And I think there's just so much oil is now being pumped to my valve cover that when that seal fails, because this is the second time I've done it, it just pushes oil right up through the seal. All right, so let's talk about the seal real quick. That's what we're replacing, and I'm using the genuine Ford part. So those of you who want the part number that I'm using, there it is. Pause it, write it down, because I'm not going to talk about it. Other than there are two types of seals that come with this for this setup. And if you look closely, our hole here in the seal is offset. There's a non-centered or offset seal, and then there's a center seal or a center hole. And I think the center hole goes to 04 to 05 and a half, and then the offset goes from 05 and a half to 08, 09. I'm not 100% sure, and I might even have that backwards. But there is a difference, so make sure you look up the right one. All right, so with that being said, let's get to work. First thing I'm going to do is let the air out of the tires to get the front end down, and that way it's easier to work over it. So let's do that. For those at home who do this, don't inflate the tire all the way to 100% zero pressure. Go down to about 5 psi, because these bigger trucks with the tires, they will have a tendency to de-bead because of the weight of the truck pressing on the tire or moving the tire. So if you keep it about 5 psi, that won't happen. There we are. That's a lot easier to work on now. So next thing I'm going to do is take off the air cleaner snorkel, and there's a 10mm bolt right there. All right, next item, we'll be taking off the power steering reservoir. Do not take the hoses off, just let it hang down. As long as your cap is on tight, it won't go anywhere. And I think those are 8mm. Yeah. Okay, just let that hang down. And then put your screws back in those holes so you don't lose them. See, everyone goes, I don't know how to put it back together, you lose all the hardware. Well, that's how you keep it from losing the hardware. Okay, so next I need to remove this big bracket, which are a couple of bolts way down here and 2 bolts underneath this. One's underneath here and the other one's right there. I think those are 13 on that one. Now I got to get a flashlight so I can see the bolts down at the bottom. One there and a big one there. That feels like a 13 or a 10. And that feels much bigger. Okay, so that's not 10. All right, it's definitely 13. The problem with these bolts that make this hard on this side is the bolts actually face downward. So I'm not putting the wrench like this. I'm putting the wrench kind of like this to get on the fastener. So it's just difficult to do it. If it wasn't for the front suspension, I can go through the wheel well and get it that way. But I think now that I got it loose, I can use a ratchet wrench. It's one of these blind bolts that you can't see, but you can feel it. And the steering shaft is in the way, and the oil dipstick's in the way. Coolant hose is in the way. Okay, so there's one. Okay. Now we got a bigger one, which I think is either 15 or 16. I can't remember. Now, why am I doing this manually and not using my air ratchet? Well, the air ratchet doesn't have the dexterity to get to that side, that angle with the head. So I'm gonna have to go manual, old school. There it is. Turn my hand back. The fun part about fixing an oil leak is everything you touch is oily and dirty. I'm turning it, but I can't. My hands are slipping on it because it's oily. All right. why do they need this big bolt for that bracket? I don't know. And then back it up with a 10mm or 13mm head bolt. Okay, so I made a mistake, and you probably saw that in the first part of the video. The 13mm you do not need to remove. That is an exhaust manifold nut that holds the exhaust manifold on. So you can not take that one off. The bracket is held on by, at the bottom, by a single fastener. And I was confusing this for the 13mm, which is right next to it. So this just has a detent that fits inside of a hole. So all you gotta do is take off the 18mm big bolt at the bottom. Good luck. So I'll put that right next to that. And there's the bracket. And we'll have to clean that up before we put it back on. Set that off to the side, and there's our oil leak. Pretty self-explanatory. There she is. So I'm going to take a moment and clean things up with some cleaner, and then we'll get back to the video. All right, we're back. And so I've got it sprayed down, cleaned up a little bit. So we squeeze this connector, it'll pull that off. That's the oil variable cam timing solenoid. We have the variable cam timing sensor down here, and the solenoid that operates the cam timing up there, the cam phaser. All right, so how do we get that seal out? Some you may be able to just pick up with your fingers out, but they're generally pressed in. So you gotta take like a screwdriver, a flat bladed screwdriver, and kind of pop it out. And I've been doing this a long time, so I have screwdrivers that are just blunt and worn out, so I use them as my drivers now. But I wouldn't use a good screwdriver because you might ruin the driver itself. But you just basically just try to work it up. There you go. That was pretty simple. Okay. There we are. So the rubbers on that is still pretty good shape, but you know, unless it, you know, it's possible it could be a blown and oil coming out of there, but unlikely, but possible. So wipe it clean. Okay, we'll get our new seal. Ta-da! And if you notice, there's a long side and a short side. You have a shorter detent and a longer detent. So line it up. There we are. Okay. Now to tap it in, I'm just going to use a brass punch. Just kind of tap it down. Kind of walk it down a little bit. There we are. Let's try to, let me get a smaller punch, get a little bit more. All right, there, you know, when you start hearing those solid sounds when you're tapping it in, you know you got it all the way down. And now that is done. And so the procedure now is the reverse of what we've taken out. I still got to clean that bracket, and then I'm going to do the same on the other side. It's exactly like this side, so I'm not even going to film it. And so there we go on changing a variable cam timing solenoid seal on a 2006 Ford F-150 with the 5.4 liter. I don't know if the 4.6 liter is set up the same way or not. I just know that that's how it is on the 5.4. So thanks for watching. We'll see you another time.